Okay, so in this video, I'm going to help you and show you again on how to simplify square roots. So go ahead, flip to the second page of lesson 4, and let's take a look at example 1. When you're working on simplifying square roots, I would suggest going to your Gmail. I sent you steps that will help you with how to solve. So the first step is always finding the largest perfect square that divides evenly into 50. So what I did, I made a list of the perfect squares. The square root of 50, so what it means to be a perfect square, you can take the square root and you'll get a whole number. So any of these numbers below listed in blue, these are all perfect squares. Think about it. I gave you a quiz last week where you had to find the square root of each one of these numbers. So square root of 50 lies about right, I would say 50 lies between 49 and 64. So I'm just going to work backwards and try to find the largest perfect square. And again, it's largest. You should be looking at your steps that divides evenly. So could I do 50 divided by 49 evenly? No. 50 divided by 36? No. 50 divided by 25? Oh yeah, I get 2. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break apart the square root of 50 to become 25. And what's the other number that multiplies 25 to give you 50? 2. So that's step 2. I rewrote 50 as a perfect square, 25, and 2. Step 3, you have to give them their own square root symbol. And notice how there's no operation in between. I could put a little dot for multiplication. However, that's not really necessary. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually do the square root of 25. If you plug in the square root of 25, what do you get? You get the whole number 5. Notice how there's no square root on that. The square root of 2 gives you some long decimal. It doesn't simplify. So I'm just going to bring it down and put it behind 5. It's mathematically correct to have it as 5 square root of 2 compared to square root of 2, 5. That's the wrong way to write it. You want to write it with the whole number in front. Let's take a look at example 2. Same thing, you want to simplify the square root as much as possible. So I have the square root of 28. Again, I have my list of perfect squares here. 28 would be between 25 and 36. So I got to find the largest perfect square that divides evenly into 28. You can't do 28 divided by 25. 28 divided by 16, let me check that in my calculator. Nope, you get a decimal. 28 divided by 9, nope, that doesn't work. Oh, it's got to be 4. So I'm going to break it apart, 4. 4 times what number gives me 28? 7. What's missing above both these numbers? Look at your step 3. I got to put a square root symbol on each one. Now I'm going to simplify the square root of 4. The square root of 4 gives me the whole number 2. And I'm going to bring down the square root of 7. Now go ahead, we're going to skip a few pages. Take a look where you can find example 3. Okay, so now I have the square root of 128. Notice that my number got a lot larger. So I do have my list here of all my perfect squares. However, I know right away 128 divided by 4, 4 times 32 gives me 128. So instead of taking the largest perfect square this time, I'm going to pick one that I know automatically works because I'm lazy and I don't feel like going through all the numbers from 121 and lower. So I'm going to break apart the square root of 128, sorry about that, to be 4 and 32. You should already know what goes on top of these numbers. Square root symbol. The square root of 4, again, gives me 2, and I'm going to bring down the square root of 32. However, this time, if I look at the square root of 32, I have a perfect square that will divide evenly into that. 4 divides into 32. Oh wait, 16 divides into 32. So when I did this, what this means, since my square root can still be divided by a perfect square, it means I'm not done. It's not in simplest terms. It's almost like saying I have 4 over 32, and I divide them both by 2, a common factor, instead of dividing them both by 4. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to break the square root of 32 up again. So I already said 16 goes into 32, and I could change it to 16 times 2 gives me 32. I'm going to bring down my 2 in front. Notice how 16 times 2 gives me 32. I just broke it apart to give me a perfect square. The square root of 16 gives me the whole number 4. And I'm going to bring down my square root of 2. I'm going to bring down this whole number 2 in front. Notice here, this doesn't mean 24. It means 2 times 4. So 2 times 4 gives me 8. And I'm going to bring my square root of 2 along with it. And that's it. Make sure you follow your steps that I sent you. Just keep working through and try your best to find the largest perfect square. It might be useful just to write this list down on your paper as you work.